Her ring in my coat pocket. The ring turned up in the wrong season. It was the thin gold band Lena never took off, the one that made her fingers look like they'd been underlined. I found it in the pocket of my charcoal coat, the one I hadn't worn since February. This was June, air heavy with jasmine and plans, and there it was, a circle waiting like a question at the bottom of the lining, next to a receipt from a speakeasy I didn't remember visiting. On the white slip in someone's quick hand, a note. Say lemon. I stood in our hallway with the coat still on the hanger, the way you hold a friend by the shoulders to see if he's lying. The ring's inside edge was warm from my palm. I could have slipped it into the dish beside the keys and said nothing. Instead, I put it on my pinky, too small, a little comic, and stared at my reflection in the hall mirror until the face looking back decided what kind of man I was going to be. My wife had been taking wellness nights on Wednesdays since spring, yoga that ran late, women's circles, a meditation teacher named Arya, not the singer, she joked, who insisted on phones face down and a vow of silence afterward. Lena's body changed in ways I felt before I noticed, shoulders looser, a new way of standing like she'd found a private horizon. She started wearing a darker lipstick, plum with a secret in it, and that new perfume that smelled like a glass of wine left outside in the rain. I didn't decide anything heroic. I decided to be curious. The speakeasy on the receipt was the Lantern Room, a place with a false door behind a shop that sold expensive olives and vintage lighters. I went on a Wednesday 15 minutes before Lena's yoga was supposed to end. If this was paranoia, I'd buy myself a drink and tell the story to no one. Inside the olive shop, a woman in a black dress was looking at tins with the concentration of a bomb tech. A curtain at the back hid the bar entrance. I practiced the look of a man who belonged. "Can I help you?" the clerk asked, already half bored. "Lemons," I said. I was told to say lemon. "Singular," the clerk said, smiling like a test had been passed. She parted the curtain. The Lantern Room was the color of a whisper. Copper lamps hung low over small tables, making islands of light in a sea of dark wood. A trio in the corner played a song that sounded like a promise you weren't sure you'd keep. I took the corner stool at the bar and tried to look like a man whose wife wasn't somewhere she shouldn't be. "What's good?" I asked the bartender. "The paper plain," she said. "If you like your regrets citrus forward." "I might tonight," I said. Before the drink arrived, a woman slid onto the stool beside mine and ordered in a voice that knew what it wanted. "2 Sazeracs," she said. "One without the absinthe rinse." She had a navy wrap dress that looked painted on and a braid that looked engineered. She glanced at me, then at my left hand, then at the ring on my little finger. "Wrong finger," she said, not unkindly. "It's not my ring," I said. "That's a sentence with a story attached," she said. "I'm Sloane." "Eli," I said. I didn't ask why she'd ordered 2 drinks. Sloane gave the room a sweep with her eyes the way a realtor evaluates a house. Price, light, secrets. She didn't look like a wellness night kind of woman. She looked like the person wellness night women wanted to impress. "You come here often?" I asked, because sometimes cliches are the right bottle to grab in a fire. "Only when my husband says he's working late," she said, and tilted her head at the back booths where the lamps wore shades like veils. "There's a donor he needs to charm. I like to be around when charm turns to habit. It makes the math easier." "Math," I said. "Subtraction," she said, "or division, depending on who you ask." The bartender set down Sloane's 2 Sazeracs and my paper plane. The 3 glasses sat between us like a constellation we hadn't named yet. I took a sip. It tasted like a decision disguised as a cocktail. I found my wife's ring in my coat pocket, I said, surprising myself with how quickly the words came. And a note that says, "Say Lemon. That's the door here." Sloane looked at me for a beat, and the kind of smile people save for conspiracies crept up one side of her mouth. "Tell me your wife's name." "Lena," I said. "Tell me the donor's name," she said. "I don't know him," I said, which was true and mortifying. "I do," she said, "Roman." The name fell into my chest like a weight finding the exact shelf it was built for. I'd heard it once, maybe twice. Roman had bought a painting from Lena's gallery and started appearing in sentences with money attached to them and phone calls afterward, where Lena's voice turned bright the way a hostess turns a lamp on in the late afternoon. I had told myself it was professional. It probably was, until it was. Sloane lifted her glass and clinked mine gently, as if christening a ship we didn't yet know we'd have to sail. "To clear sight," she said. "It's a nasty kindness." "Do we confront them?" I asked, and my voice had more steel than I expected. "We could," she said, "and make the string lights up there earn their keep. Or we could be the more interesting story in the room and let them find us." "How do we do that?" I asked. "We dance," she said, and she slid off her stool. There wasn't a dance floor so much as a patch of wood between tables where people swayed when the band turned a notch toward sin. Sloane took my hand like we'd agreed to be brave. Her fingers were cool. Mine were fire. She placed my palm on the small of her back and stepped in until the distance between us felt conversational. The band closed its eyes and made the kind of sound that forgives. "I'm not a dancer. I'm a man who can be taught if you put your hands on my shoulders and count." But something about Sloane's steadiness made my body remember what it knows. We moved slow, our hips honest about it. Her braid brushed the back of my hand each time I led her through a turn. She smelled like orange peel and silk. When she laughed at something I said, she did it into my neck, and the sound vibrated down to my chest in a way that had nothing to do with anything and everything to do with why people make terrible decisions. "Relax your fingers," she murmured once, breath at my ear, and I did, and the room shifted like a lens focusing. We became the kind of couple strangers watch, two people who made it look like gravity was optional. My hand found the path along her spine like it had been waiting there in the dark. She pressed closer on a downbeat and then softened, a tease any camera could run on loop without being obscene. It was how bodies talk when words might ruin it. Sloane's eyes flicked over my shoulder. "Don't look," she said, which meant of course I did. There near the back booth was Lena in her plum lipstick and a red dress I hadn't seen before, hair pinned up like a present you unwrap slowly. Roman stood beside her, not touching yet, smiling as if he'd bought the evening wholesale. Lena saw me the way a person sees a landmark that confirms they're lost. For a second, all four of us lived in the same sentence. The band held a note that wanted somewhere to go. "Keep dancing," Sloane said, and I did, because you don't stop when the stage lights click on. We finished the song like we'd planned to. When it ended, Sloane squeezed my hand and stepped back with a grace that made all the air around her behave. Lena came toward us as if wadding through thicker atmosphere. Roman stayed where he was, calculating. Up close, Lena's lipstick looked like a brave choice she'd second-guessed. She didn't look angry or guilty. She looked like someone who'd misread a map and ended up on the wrong side of a river. "Eli," she said. My name in her mouth had always been a home. Tonight it sounded like a place being priced. "Nice dress," I said, because petty is a refuge. "It was a dinner," she said, "for donors." "And no rings," I said, showing her mine, too tight on the wrong finger. Her eyes found the band and something in her softened painfully. She began. Don't, Sloane said, as kindly as a doctor cutting off a guess. We're all smarter than the part we're playing. Roman arrived with a smile sharpened for negotiations. He stuck out his hand to me like we were closing on a house. Roman, he said, and then to Sloane, you weren't supposed to be here. That's the trouble with vows, she said. They make you believe in schedules. He looked back to Lena, who didn't look at him. She looked at me, and I saw she had the face of a woman who'd been trying to decide between two doors and had walked into a window instead. We should talk, she said. We should, I said, alone. We didn't do this in the bar. We walked out past the olives, past the vintage lighters, into a night that felt humid with possibility. In the alley, neon drew a faint red line down the brick like a warning. I didn't sleep with him, Lena said, and her voice didn't waver, which is different from saying it didn't shake me. I believe you, I said, and it surprised us both. But you wanted to stand near the edge and see how it felt. She looked at the ring on my wrong finger and closed her eyes once slowly, a nod to gravity. I wanted to feel chosen again, she said. Not in a way that makes you small, in a way that makes me big. I have been a calendar lately, I said. Reminders, errands, breaks between episodes, I'm sorry. But a ring in my coat pocket isn't a conversation. It's a dare. I know, she whispered. For a minute we stood 3 feet apart like two opera singers resting between impossible notes. When I stepped forward, I expected either an argument or an embrace. Instead, Lena reached for my hand and brought it to her cheek the way people in paintings do when they kneel in prayer. Her skin was cool. My hand was a confession. We stayed like that long enough for a taxi to nose past the alley and back again. Come home with me, I said. Not to pretend, she said. Not to pretend, I agreed. Back in our apartment, the city pressed its forehead against our windows and listened. We didn't undress like a movie. We didn't rush. I made tea because my hands needed to do something gentle. Lena took off her earrings like they were apologies. When she came to stand between my knees where I sat on the edge of the bed, she held my face like I was something warm she didn't want to spill. We kissed the way conversations sometimes do when they realize words have stopped being useful, slow, careful, the kind that ask you to notice. Her fingers found the back of my neck and rested there, not gripping, just claiming. I ran my palm along her spine like I was smoothing out rumpled maps. The ring, back on her proper finger, clicked softly against the bed frame when she reached back for balance. We both heard it and smiled into each other. A small, human sound that said more than the speeches we could have given. We didn't make love like a storm. We let the room write the tempo. There are touches that are geography lessons and touches that are letters home. We collected both, avoiding the camera angles that would turn us into strangers. When we paused, it was to breathe the same air and memorize it. When we began again, it was because beginning felt like choosing. I woke before dawn with Lena asleep on my chest, her hair a final untied ribbon. My phone lit the room with a quiet insistence. A message from an unknown number. I won't contact her again. I deleted it without replying. Sloane had texted too, just checking you made it home. I typed, we did. Thank you, and stared at the blinking cursor until the only thing left to say was nothing. Lena stirred and propped her chin on my sternum. What do we do now? She asked. We write rules, I said. The boring kind that save people. No more wellness nights, she said, half smiling. No more secret passwords, I said. And if one of us ends up wanting to stand by an edge again, we say it out loud and do it together. She nodded and kissed the place on my shoulder that always makes me forget I'm supposed to be composed. I'll say it out loud, she whispered, even if it's ugly, especially then. We did the work you don't put in the montage. Counseling on Tuesday afternoons when the city looked like it was being washed. Phones in a drawer on Fridays after 7. A standing date where our only rule was no talk about schedules. Sometimes I would pull her into the hallway and kiss her against the wall with the drama of a 19-year-old. Sometimes she would stand at the sink and tilt her neck in a way that lit the room like a dimmer switch. Our erotica became ordinary. A palm at the small of a back while the pasta boiled, slow dancing in bare feet to a song we didn't know, the sound of a zipper coming down like a curtain that doesn't need to announce itself. Months later, I saw Sloane again by accident, in line for coffee on a Saturday that smelled like rain. She wore jeans and a white shirt and the kind of calm that comes after setting a house on fire and walking out without looking back. "How's your math?" I asked. "Clean," she said. I subtracted, he multiplied excuses. I divided the furniture and kept the light. We smiled at each other the way veterans do when they recognize a scar. When I told Lena that evening, on our couch, windows open, her head on my lap like a seal, I didn't leave out the part where Sloane and I had once swayed like a secret. I told the whole thing because the truth had started to feel like a muscle worth flexing. Lena lifted my hand and kissed each knuckle, pausing at the ring. "Thank you for not being boring about forgiveness," she said. I'm not. When she leans in now and asks in that voice to meet me in the bedroom and take our time, there's a kind of gratitude that feels like heat. We don't need speakeasy passwords or rooftop views. We need the lamp on the dresser and the blue quilt and a window that invites the sky to judge us and declines its opinion. I still have the old receipt from the lantern room. It lives in the junk drawer with batteries and pens that don't work until you scribble. Sometimes I take it out and run my thumb over the ink, the way people touch ticket stubs from concerts that changed their lives. "Say lemon," it reminds me. We don't use that door anymore. We built our own. And every Wednesday now, when the evening unspools and the city hums its warm city song, I pour Lena a glass of cold white wine and set it on the balcony railing. She comes out barefoot, the ring catching light the way forgiveness does when it's real. And if she leans into me and we start to sway, we let the night keep our best angles and the rest is ours alone.